time to talk about everyone's favorite topic, aging. Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. Today we are back and we are talking about Gen Z again. If you missed my last video, we talked about the rise of Gen Alpha and specifically how Gen Alpha is becoming the newest generation to hit the internet, meaning that Gen Z, while we have literally just got our limelight, is on the way out. That's dramatic. I talk about it more in my other video, so you should definitely go check that out if you haven't already. But in that video, I asked you if you'd be interested in me talking about Gen Z in aging, specifically Gen Z's fear and aversion towards aging. And y'all seem to really want that video, given that one of the top comments saying that y'all wanted that has like 2.3 thousand likes. So yeah, let's really get into it because the oldest of us Gen Z are almost pushing 30, which is insane. Saying that out loud is a crazy statement. Let me just start there. It's even crazier considering that we've had so much go on just within our generation's youth. And it feels like now is like the first time where Gen Z is like really the highlight. Like before it felt like we were having our moment, we were like building up to our moment. This thoroughly feels like our moment. And the fact that our next biggest challenge is the passage of time is just very fitting. Very, very, very fitting. But specifically in this video, we're gonna be talking about the differences in aging between Gen Z and other generations, in terms of like the fear of it, the prevention of it, and just the general sentiments around getting older. Diving into how social media has affected our beauty standards and our concept of age. Getting into the mental health of it all, and finally really digging deep into where our obsession with being young comes from. And then really getting into the question that I feel like a lot of people have been asking, especially in our generation, is like, will Gen Z look younger, older? But before we get into any of that, hi. I'm Rumi, and welcome back to Imurgency, a series that I have on this channel where we talk about all things Gen Z and media, pop culture, and television. I also post other commentary content, fashion content, TV show content, although I am on a hiatus right now in support of the writers and actor strikes, and much more. So if you are new around here and any of that content sounds interesting to you, to make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the content that I have coming out on this channel. You can also show so much support by leaving a like on this video because it helps out tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to keep up with me serving cunt on the internet, you can follow me on my other social medias on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Imurgency. But let's actually get into things, shall we? So I feel like it's kind of sensational to say that like Gen Z is rapidly getting older and we are aging by the second, because that's a lot. The majority of us are not at the point where we are almost 30. That is the strong and mighty oldest part of Gen Z. A really large portion of us are in our early 20s or at least over the age of 18. While there are still a bunch of Gen Z that are like between the ages of like 8 and 12, I think, the increasing majority of us are becoming adults. And that fact itself is just wild because it feels like for so many of us Gen Z that we were just kids a second ago. And I feel like a lot of that is due to the time that we lost during the height of the pandemic, the lockdowns, basically all the time spent not living traditionally as we did prior to the pandemic. That messaging is very much in line with this video sponsor, BetterHelp. Personally, I am currently in therapy and have been for years at this point, and it's been really helpful for me as someone who has pretty bad anxiety to learn how to one, manage it, and two, to recognize when I'm feeling anxious, as well as identifying the triggers for that. And I 100% would not have been able to get to this point or really know that those steps were possible without taking the time to invest in myself and start therapy. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more accessible and affordable, which is so important because finding a therapist is already hard enough, but can be even harder when you're limited to only the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's, for one, online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you with a professional therapist that can match your specific needs in just a few days. And if you're not really vibing with the therapist that they match you with, which is a common thing in therapy across the board, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without having to worry about insurance, who's in network, or anything like that. So if you're struggling or just wanting to try out therapy for yourself, consider trying out BetterHelp. You can get started today by clicking the link in my description at betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com/emergency for 10% off your first month of therapy at BetterHelp. Thanks BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. Like I feel like personally it's really shocking to me that I'm like 23, like that just don't even sound right, to be honest. And I'm turning 24 in December, which means that next December I'm gonna be turning 25. And that's scary, like very scary, because although I am well through my adolescence, like my adulthood adolescence of like the early 20s is almost gone. And seeing that time just be whisked away because while I was 20, 21, 22, life was severely limited and I was living a different lifestyle as I might have if there wasn't a pandemic, which I feel like is very much the case for everyone in our generation. It's just also wild to think that we've gotten to this point and that we've gotten this far, because I know that I'm not the only one that is shocked that I've made it this far. Like 25 at the end of next year doesn't even sound right. Like Rumi, Imurgency, 25, not in my wildest dreams, babes. Not in my wildest dreams. 22 is cute, 23 is okay, 24 is pushing it, but 25 it needs and I'm not sure if this whole fear of aging is necessarily rooted from getting old and getting wrinkles and all of that, but it's more so just being farther and farther away from youth and what is considered your prime. Like, at least for me. And a lot of that is because prior to, I want to say, millennials, we had no real grasp of like what later adulthood is like. Like, we've got a pretty good grasp of like the 20s are like, but like 30s and onward has kind of been a mystery up until recently, because like with the rise of TikTok and regular people being able to share their experiences on what life is like around that age, as well as the influencers that we grew up watching as a generation now entering their 30s and being well into their 30s and showing what life is like for them. The whole concept of being 30 and being an adult does not seem scary in that sense, because from what it seems, 30s is bringing a lot of stability and peace and maturity and confidence, which I would love all of those things. And they finally get that brain development patch, you know, when you hit 25 and your brain finishes developing and you get logical, like, can't wait. Like, the fear is just like not being an adolescent, being a young adult anymore. Because I feel like as a generation, we've romanticized our youth so much. And it's wild when you actually think about it. Like, I feel like Gen Z was brought up on the whole like coming of age film, movie, TV, media. Where everyone wants to have this aesthetic life where you're exploring the big wide world, where everywhere you look feels new and foreign. And while yeah, that's still possible as you get older, as you do get older, your view and your lens of the world does change. And you don't always have that youthful naivete that allows you to see the world through these rose-colored glasses, although Gen Z actually isn't known for looking at the world itself with the rose-colored glasses. But you know, the fantasy of it. Like, that was the case in high school, definitely in college, and even in early adulthood, like post-grad, or if you didn't go to college, like their 20s. Like, the whole concept of the 20s is like this whole idea of like figuring yourself out and learning to be who you are and moving a whole bunch or not and just making a new cast of characters in your life and, you know, all of that. I'm sorry, that's annoying. Let me calm down. And I feel like that concept of aging is what is one of the major differences between aging in Gen Z versus in prior generations, because I saw in the comments of my last video of people talking about the making of this video, and some people were very adamant of being like, all generations have aging scares, Gen Z isn't special, why do you think cosmetic surgeries and the like have all been popularized like that? And okay, I understand. Again, you're right on that point, but I feel like where Gen Z differs in terms of like aging scares or the whole concept of getting older from other generations is that Gen Z is the first generation to be so heavily influenced by social media and to have certain beauty and body standards constantly thrown at them on a daily basis wherever they look. And not to discount the experiences of other generations at all, but I feel like with previous generations, they had television, magazines, and older eras of social media, like Facebook, MySpace, and Tumblr for the millennials. And while those channels definitely presented their own ways of trying to get people to not want to age and to look a certain way, compared to the media channels that Gen Z has today, I feel like there's just more of an active and passive exposure. Like, there's a new beauty hack, beauty trend, body check, diet tip, and new way to feel insecure about yourself literally every single day on the internet that affects men, women, and everyone in between. Men are now checking each other online for their cancel tilts and BMIs. The heroin chic versus BBL baddie debate is back in session, and these conversations just generally make people unhappy, because at the end of the day, these are all just ways of people trying to gauge their appearance in comparison to others. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a jealous way, but more so in a self-evaluative way that isn't always positive. And with the rise of different filters on TikTok and Instagram that point out these insecurities and where you're going to age, like, oh, y'all remember the whole sensational filters that came out, like the first one that made people look younger, like their teenage self, to make people feel old now, and there were all these like older people being like, wow, I remember her. And more recently, the aged filter that's showing people what they're going to look like when they're older. And that's a scary filter, might I add. Like, I tried it for me and mine does not look cute. Well, and a lot of the response that at least I was seeing online from that filter are a lot of people in Gen Z being like, oh, let me make sure I up my sunscreen, or like, if this is what I look like when I'm older, just take me out now. And I also saw a lot of people wondering like what age the filter was showing, which is so real, but also so relevant to this video, because is that filter supposed to be me at 40, me at 50, me at 70? I'm hoping it's like 80s, because anything younger would be a tragedy. And it's just the prevalence at which these sort of things come online, where it always just feels like it's a constant bombardment and reminder of aging and appearance, because as we know, as we age, our appearance changes as well, unless you do something about it. And it's not hard to see how these constant comparisons and these constant reminders of aging, of being beautiful, and all of those things can affect someone's mental health. Because especially if you feel like you're not meeting the beauty standard, if you're not feeling pretty or attractive enough, people can take that personal and internalize that. Because if you just happen to be big backed with little lips, predict the age terribly with no nyash and a negative canthal tilt, like you'd feel bad about yourself. That is the most chronically online sentence I've ever said. And I want to have a disclaimer now because I feel like someone's gonna take that serious. That was a chronically online joke. And while it might not be that specific and severe, these body and age check things we see so much on social media are definitely negatively impacting our mental health. And I feel like a lot of times we see these things about age and beauty affect us, specifically when they're not meant towards us and geared towards another person. For example, celebrities aging. I feel like the internet is always so obsessed with like what celebs age well and which ones don't. And I see this happen more often towards women, to which, I wonder why the internet would focus more on criticizing the bodies of women. What a quandary indeed. Whether it be people talking about how Selena looks like she had been putting on weight and looking older, to Ariana Grande looking unhealthily thin and much older in discourses earlier this year. When the general public, which also happens to oftentimes be Gen Z in these sort of discussions, are harping on certain aspects of celebrities' appearances, there are also people that are seeing this sort of discourse and being like, if people are eating up this person for looking this type of way, I kind of look like that too. So then they feel bad about themselves. Or there will be people like, oh my God, I don't want to look like that when I'm older, which is its own form of issue. And for this next topic, I want to have a disclaimer because I feel like this can be interpreted in many different ways, which I do not intend. This next section of the video, I'm going to be talking about the impacts of aging in Gen Z, and specifically towards the increased normalization of cosmetic procedures in our generation. And I want to say first and foremost, this is not a place to shame people for their cosmetic procedures. I'm a firm believer in doing whatever to yourself to make you feel happy, to make you feel beautiful, and to love and be obsessed with yourself, because I feel like everyone deserves to feel that way about themselves at some point. I mean, as long as the reasoning isn't for like race baiting reasons or to look like a different race, because I feel like that gets into different territories for cosmetic procedures. But I feel like in comparison to other generations, we are one of the most accepting groups of people towards these procedures, whether they be hair transplants, BBLs, baby Botox, fillers, facelifts, lip flips, height replacements even, and many more. And I feel like it's a common trope or like argument point for older people being like, oh, y'all are so obsessed with being young, y'all mutilate y'all's faces and look all fake and plastic to look all young. But like, I feel like it's the intention behind it that is what matters. And I don't think that it's as cut and dry as those talking points are. I see a lot of stuff online geared towards the whole preventative aspect of these cosmetic procedures, like preventative Botox, where people will get Botox in their like mid to late 20s or early 30s to help prevent the onset of wrinkles at an older age, which I mean, I'm all here for. If that's your prerogative and that's what you want to do, then go for it. But I also think it's interesting to get into why we feel we need or would like to do that and why we want to appear younger, older. It brings up the whole conversation of aging gracefully and what does that even mean? Because I feel like traditionally people have been using the term aging gracefully as in just aging naturally and not really doing anything for your appearance outside of what nature was going to do to you anyway. Which I mean is cool and works for people, but I feel like aging gracefully means so many different things to so many people. Like aging gracefully for one person may mean like going natural, but to one person it can mean like aging gradually. So not having drastic changes in your appearance, going from like having not a wrinkle on your face in your 20s to having parts of your body sag and wrinkles and all that 10 years later, which again is not a bad thing, but some people don't want that. And why is that exactly? I feel like we as a generation have a self-imposed duty to stay attractive, fly hot, and sexy for as long as possible. Like I feel like there's a common sentiment, or at least a sentiment that I've been seeing a lot on TikTok, of people genuinely wanting to be like the hot mom or hot dad when they're older and keeping up with their appearances. And I find that so interesting because this need to stay attractive throughout life has always been a goal for people. I don't want to say it's a completely Gen Z thing, because I feel like every generation at some point wanted to remain as attractive or as youthful as they look in their 20s as they do when they're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. But I feel like it's really interesting with Gen Z because now with the dissemination of information through social media, I feel like our generation as a whole has a better understanding and in higher rate of people taking care of their skin at a younger age. Like I feel like everyone has a skincare routine. We've heard the insistent messaging over the use of sunscreen daily, and people are actually doing that as a daily part of their regimen, as opposed to just when they're out in the sun, at rates that we hadn't seen before, especially in comparison to other generations. So it's interesting to see how all that really does play out as we do get older, and if those things actually do help us look younger as we get older. But also on the other hand, this is the generation that has a vape and nicotine addiction, is chronically stressed out and anxious, and has increasing rates of insomnia and just lack of sleeping. So maybe those two things will counteract each other because all of that does also age you. So maybe in the end, we will just be aging gracefully. And when I say we, I mean not me. But when it really comes down to it, I feel like we as Gen Z need to just be okay with aging, because aging is a natural part of life and getting older is okay. And I feel like the more that we can accept that, the better the experience will be for us. Of course, don't stop doing your skincare and don't stop applying sunscreen. Maybe put down the vape. Actually, definitely put down the vape. This is a PSA. If you had to take a puff during the duration of this video, girl, I have some bad news for you. Put the down. I feel like we're gonna be just okay. Whether or not we get to age fully because of the state of the world right now is a completely different discussion. But it's important to take aging in stride and to not try to cling to youth very vigorously as we've seen with previous generations, and to just let ourselves age. It's okay, we could still be relevant in our own way. We may not be the youngest girls on the block anymore. I love that I've been making Gen Z seem like they are mid-30s. But that's also another thing, like we're still young. We are still so young that we should still take our preventative measures and our precautions, but not think so hard about it. Not be so hard on ourselves. And when we do age, because we are going to age, be okay with it. But yeah, those are all my thoughts right now. I would love to hear from you. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about aging as a Gen Z. Are you really concerned about it? Have you been doing things yourself to mitigate the effects of aging? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Again, if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future content, and leave a like on this video, and follow me on my socials at Imurgency. And before you go, as a reminder, consider therapy with our video sponsor, BetterHelp. Click the link in my description to get started today at betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com/emergency for 10% off your first month of therapy. But other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.